Welcome to Chapters, everyone. Thank you all for joining in on this discussion of picking up the pieces to 100 Broken Promises. I am Yushima Cherry Burks, the author of said book, and I am your host today. Every Sunday for the next 9 weeks, we will be discussing one chapter from my book. Okay, panel, introduce yourselves and tell us what you do.
Hi, I'm Shunketta. I am an AR specialist, or accounts receivable specialist,
Mhm.
and that's what I do.
Thank you. Welcome, Sean. Good to see you again. Hi.
Thank
And
you.
Tonya, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Tonya Kinney, and I'm a chaplain here in San Marcos, Texas.
Nice to meet you, and thank you for joining us today. All right, and Chanelle.
Hi, I'm Chanelle Wesley. I'm the author, collaborator of PC's Inc., and I'm so excited to be here with this great panel. And of course, Ushima.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, and I am so excited to have you back as well. Well, ladies, without further ado, let's get started. Today, we are going over Chapter 4. The titles in Chapter 4 are Pseudo Control, He's Still Here, Hurricane Mitch, and Pain is Pain. This chapter opens up with me discussing how I ended up homeless and sleeping in my car for 2 months, and a trusted friend who opened his house up to me for a night allowed me to sleep on his floor and on a pallet. This friend of mine I've known since the 5th grade. His daughter and my daughter were friends, and I fully trusted him. He had never done anything to warrant me questioning his motives or anything else. He's always been a perfect gentleman. This particular night, he offered to allow me to make a pallet, and I did, and I laid my 6-year-old daughter next to me, and we were kind of just laying together. And during that time, he came and he raped me while I laid directly next to my daughter, and he knew I would be quiet because I wouldn't want to wake my daughter up and her waking up in that situation. So that was very traumatic to me, and I already had mega trust issues. And so when that happened, it just forced me into another situation that I shouldn't have been in, which was marrying Mitch, because he offered to help us to get a home. I was working full time. I had moved from Madison back to Milwaukee because my mom said she needed me and she wanted to have a relationship with me finally. And later I found out that that was just a ruse because she knew I was about to get married and I was saving up money for the wedding and I was saving up money for our home that we were going to purchase together. And in 2 weeks, she depleted all of my savings. I had gotten her car out of repossession. I paid all her bills up and she put me and my daughter out. And that's how we ended up homeless. So at this point, I had left an engagement to a man who had never done anything wrong to me. He was part of, and unfortunately, he did have to suffer the consequences of my bad decisions. My needing to be accepted from my mom, me wanting to have that relationship and wanting to finally bond with her, and just believing that I could finally, have this relationship with her. I think that took precedence over everything that I wanted from him at that time. So I lost a fiance, a stable home, because we were in a stable home. I lost a friend, someone who I thought was my friend. My daughter lost her friend, which was his daughter. Once again, I was disappointed from my mom, and I found myself having to start over all over again. With that being said, my question to you is, have you ever had to start over from scratch, from nothing, and how did you do it?
I'll go. When I left my ex-husband, like it was so much had happened in the marriage, and there was just a breaking straw for me. And even though we were still cordial and we were, friends, like we were still together, but he didn't know that I was breaking away from him. I had him thinking that, oh, I'm just gonna go here for the summer, and I'll just be here, for a few weeks or whatever. But I was packing all my stuff up. I was packing all our clothes up.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came here, he helped me for a little bit, but I had no job. I had no money.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved back in, from having my own place to living with my mom and my stepfather.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't get a job right away. I figured, oh, I'm in the banking industry. It's easy to get a job at a bank. Psych.
Right.
So it took me like 3 months to get a job.
Oh,
And then, when you get a job, you playing catch up,
yep.
so I had to play catch up. I didn't have a place, besides, here. But then I, so when you and I moved in together, that's why I didn't have anything. Well, he eventually moved out a housing and he put our stuff in storage.
Mhm.
So I had stuff, but it wasn't here with me.
Right.
So that was the only time that I really had to start
Mhm.
like with no job, with me and a kid. Because when I left home, it was just me. Now I
Right.
come back with a 5-year-old,
Hmm.
so.
Thanks for answering. Second part to that question is, do you wish you would have done it differently?
Most definitely. Most definitely. And I think that we talked about that the other day as far as, being selfish. Like I said, it was infidelity on the both parties. I can't walk out of it and saying, oh, he did me this way. I did him too.
Mhm.
So, I was selfish because I was thinking about myself and not my daughter. I uprooted her from her structure to start her all over.
Yeah.
So if I had a chance to do it over, I would have, maybe, talked about it and not. I'm so stubborn. I'm so
Mhm.
bullheaded. Like once I get my mindset on something, that's that. That's the way it is. Ain't no changing me. But I did make some abrupt decisions because I was in my feelings. I was in my emotions and not thinking about my family, but just thinking about myself.
Yes. Yes. I can absolutely empathize with you in that situation. But thank you for sharing, Sean. Tonya and Chanelle, what
Thank you.
about you? Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's been times when I've been the one who's been on the receiving end of somebody's selfishness, and then I myself have been incredibly selfish. I remember a time when was working and I was doing really well in work, and I was flying back and forth to DC, and I just kind of got caught up in. I always say it's not the struggle or the grind. It's always been success for me, where I kind of get to sit in my ego.
Mm.
And so probably I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah, my son said, "Are you going to be here for my birthday?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to be able to be on the flight. I'm headed out to DC. It's really important. I got to be there. We'll celebrate when I get back."
Mm.
And he's 20 now. He's never let that go. And I know that
Oh,
seems small,
it was
but
big
it's
for him.
significant in his life to the point.
Mhm.
Yeah, he still tells me it's my birthday tomorrow. Like it's happening tomorrow. And the end result of that job was that the Lord really, it wasn't even probably 6 months later that I had to make a choice to leave that position.
Yeah.
My daughter was diagnosed with epilepsy,
Mhm.
and the Lord was calling me to something else, another chapter in my life. And at the same time, I was being harassed sexually by my boss there. And so it kept pushing me toward another part of my life I needed to move away from. So, yeah, it definitely, like I said, I've been on the receiving end and the giving of that
Absolutely.
selfishness. And there are things I wish I could do differently.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And my whole life. That's just a small little, tidbit,
Listen.
just like your story. There's so many. Yeah,
Oh,
I really could relate to what you shared.
yes. Thanks, Tonya. Thank you for your transparency, and I can absolutely empathize with you as well. Sorry to hear about your daughter, but is she doing well now? Is everything okay with
Oh,
her?
yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, she's doing phenomenal. No seizures for like the last 3 years. So amazing.
Awesome. Oh, that's really good. Praise God. Look at that. Okay. Thank you for sharing. All right, Chanelle, what about you?
Oh, man. First of all, I just want to thank both for their transparency. My thing is, unfortunately, yes, I've had to start over, and I've had to start over a couple of times in life. And I think the most significant start over was when my current husband and I became separated. The marriage was just really traumatic because there was no trust in the relationship, and it had just become to a point where it had become toxic.
Yeah.
My two oldest children both left that year to attend college, which I was very proud of both of my children and their journey. I'm thankful that we separated right after I brought my daughter down to Oakwood at Huntsville, Oakwood University, Huntsville, Alabama, because and I was glad that both of them were out in school, because if they would have known the situation and if things would have happened prior to, they would not have opted to go to school. They would have thought that they needed to sacrifice for me. And so I'm glad that it happened in the way that it did. At the time that I decided that I wanted him out, I had my 15-year-old daughter who had a severe anoxic brain injury. In fact, two of them, 3 years earlier. So she became a total needs kiddo overnight. So I was her primary caregiver. I had three smaller children. I had just received a lump from my mother. She had passed the previous year. And it was a lot to become a single parent overnight, to be dealing with just the only person, the only adult in a situation caring for a special need multi-complex child. It was just a lot. The monies that I had were slowly depleting. Because of both my health and my daughter's, I wasn't able to maintain full-time employment. It was just crazy. And I literally had to just get a calendar and just check off dates. I had to write things down. It was a lot of processing, reprocessing, just trying to literally claw my way out. Some days were so it was just so much emotion. Even now, just thinking about it just brings me to a place where I don't really want to be. But it just stretched me in ways that I would have never been stretched. I grew so much from the experience. And I'm so thankful that I'm on the other side of that particular journey. But starting over sucks, but it is also an opportunity for rebirth, although you might have some difficulties and things that you have to bring with you into that experience. But unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And your story is just so touching and inspiring as well. Just your ability to continue to motivate and help others and inspire others in spite of all of the difficulties that you've been through is just a godsend. That is nothing but the Holy Spirit, and that's an anointing on your life. And I really do appreciate you for being able to just be here with us today. So thank you. And thank you all for your transparencies. You've all made it through so many different traumatic situations, and you're still here to talk about it today, and you're whole and you're healing. And I just pray that we continue the journey of healing. Moving on, we also talked about trauma bonding in chapter 4. Does everyone know what trauma bonding is? Okay, well, I'll give a short definition. Trauma bonding is a psychological response to abuse. It occurs when the abused person forms an unhealthy bond with the person who abuses them. It can be, I believe my relationship with Mitch was due to trauma bonding. He was broken, I was broken. I didn't know how to fix me, so I felt like I could fix him, right? I felt like it would be easier to put those energies into helping him. And although I knew it was an unhealthy situation, I knew it was toxic, God was telling me no the whole time, right? He was like, no, no, no. And I was like, but you could fix him, it's fine. You got this, right? And he was like, no. And so, of course, it ended up in disaster, because when we're disobedient, there's consequences to that, right? So I stayed in this relationship in spite of knowing that it was not healthy for me. It wasn't healthy for our son. It was just a total disaster. Have you ever experienced trauma bonding in your relationships? And this can be with a friend, it can be with a family member, it can be any type of relationship. I've also experienced this with family members as well. Just as I mentioned earlier, wanting the approval from my mom, I was willing to uproot and leave a stable, loving environment and threw myself into a chaotic whirlwind of foolishness, right? So that was a huge experience of trauma bonding. But have you ever experienced that? We'll start with Shunketta. I guess we'll just go around. Shun, have you?
I have, but it's more of a mental thing, as far as being with a person who verbally abuses you, because you you want to give the person the benefit of the doubt. You want to see the good in that person, or you have seen the good in that person, because had you not seen the good in that person, then you wouldn't be with that person, so that was my thing. So I saw the good in this person, and knowing that this person wasn't for me, because I mean, relationships aren't hard. You just have to talk it through, and of course I know that now, but
Yeah.
while you're in it, you be like, oh, this is the love of my life, and we're gonna be together forever.
Yes.
But but knowing that this person is doing X, Y, and Z to you, how can you form, or how can you even say that you love that person, or that person, how can you even think that that person loves you,
Right.
and they're not treating you well? So I have, on more than one occasion, have been in those type of relationships. So yeah.
And to just kind of piggyback off of what you said earlier, they do give us just enough of that goodness for us to hold on and crave that one more time. It's like, he'll be nice again. I'll feel that again. I can get him back to that place where he's happy. And you find yourself trying to please him or her or whatever. You find yourself trying to please that person to get them back to that state of happiness so they can treat you better. But it has nothing to do with you, right? They know their
It has
cycle.
nothing to do with you.
It's a cycle of abuse. It's a
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Sean, for that. Okay, Tonya.
Yeah, I was raised by my mom. She was a single mom when she had me. We were homeless. We lived in her little VW Bug in Southern California. And so she married my stepdad, who raised me, and he was a Hell's Angel. And so she's Hispanic and Catholic and a hippie, and he's a Hell's Angel, and he's super white and Mormon. So it was a different dynamic. So you talk about observing and watching this kind of chaotic relationship. Well, in my 20s, my early 20s, my biological dad reached out to my grandmother, and she reached out to me, and it was probably about getting to know him for about 5 years. And he really wanted to bond, and he tried to have that, what they call, I learned later, it's grooming.
Yeah.
But he wanted to bond, and he tried to bond over his relationship with my mom, and in totally inappropriate way. And so later, I saw that he was very selfish and somebody who's an extreme narcissist. I could see him pulling and pushing his family apart with his constant need to try to bond with someone. And if you didn't do it his way, then it was the wrong way. And so he did the same with me, which is, as an adult, you're starting to see it. That's odd, but I'd never really been treated like that before. So there's this natural inclination, like normal families, you forgive and you get back together. So it was, I went and I stayed in his home. I was probably about 25, and he was in Mexico on a mission trip, and he came back up, and he was completely inappropriate with me in a sexual way. And so that was very heartbreaking for me, and trying to maintain that relationship and wondering, what does it look like to forgive someone, and having to walk through that. And it took about 5 years to really heal from that, and then complete separation and break and never going back, and having the courage, or at least, the ability to say, I'm not going to go back into that kind of relationship, even though you want, you portray yourself as my father. You're not, that's something a father wouldn't do. And so it was definitely, like I said, it's a very hard process. And, as I read your book, it was definitely, I could see that it was a journey for you, and you talk about the length of time, and then your ability to talk about it, and the way you can normalize trauma. Not that it's okay, but you call it what it is, and you can say it. So I love that you're giving that to anyone reading your book. It's so beautiful, the ability to go ahead and just speak your truth and what happened in a really truthful way, not having to hide anything.
Absolutely. It was very cathartic. And thank you so much for sharing your story time. I want to read your book. Shoot. That sounds very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. You've had, sounds like, very similar experiences in your life, a bout of homelessness and growing up with parents from two different foundations, right? When you have those foundations and you try to bring those things together, it is complete chaos. I grew up one way with a belief system at the time I was at Venice. I'm pretty sure my ex-husband was in the occult. I didn't know at the time. I was kind of sheltered with stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure he was dipping and dabbling into some stuff, because it kind of went down into his son, So I believe that stronghold, we're praying for that to get broken. But the decisions that we make as parents absolutely affect our children on a spiritual level that we don't even consider sometimes, right? I'm sorry to hear about what happened with your dad. That had to be heartbreaking, that trust being violated like that. We talked about that in chapter 3, I believe, in chapter 2, maybe in all the chapters, so it came up in one way or another. So I am sorry to hear about that. And I do believe that forgiveness does not mean that you automatically reconcile and reconnect with that person. I believe forgiveness is for yourself, and it is releasing them from having to fix your pain, and it is taking responsibility for healing yourself. That is what I believe forgiveness is. It's releasing them to go into the world and do what they need to do, and allowing God to fix it. So I'm glad that you were able to find peace with that. Thank you so much for sharing, Tonya. Chanelle, what about trauma bonding?
I just want to say I was just so moved by the stories that I heard, both from Sean and from Tonya, and of course with your book, Yushima. Is when I was just reading the story, I just felt like I was there. You know what I mean? The details that you gave, and just experiencing things like that myself, it just put me in a space. You know what I mean? And I just wanted to hold you. I really did. I wanted to.
It says he heals up the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And you added that. And today I've heard that probably 6 different times.
Wow.
And so it's such a beautiful ministry. As soon as I read it this morning, I finished up the rest of the chapter this morning. I just started, my eyes welled up, and I thought, God's really using this time of the pandemic where we enter into these relationships. I didn't know none of you, and God brings this really beautiful opportunity to be ministered to and loved on, and also hopefully encourage and offer some hope. And, I'm always shocked when I see that almost every woman I know has experienced some sort of sexual abuse or trauma or oppression or disparity of power, and how it impacts our life profoundly and our ability to parent and have relationships, and how it's the long game in our whole life. It's just the long game, and how shame and guilt is just ready to sit on us and cause us to, some confusion. So it's always a gift when I meet other women who've moved past that or are on their way past the shame and guilt.
Absolutely.
So wonderful meeting all of you.
You too. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hate that we're running behind. I hate that you have to leave. Please give me your contact information. We will absolutely have to reconnect again in some capacity. And again, thank you so much, Tonya. You have a wonderful day. Nice meeting you.
Yes, you too. I would love to. I'll read the rest of the book.
All right.
Bye.
Awesome. Bye. Thanks. Bye. You guys, we are back after having technical difficulties, but everything's worked out now. So Chanelle, what were you saying about your experience with trauma bonding?
I was just saying, first of all, that I was so thankful to be on the panel with these lovely ladies. I was just so moved by both Sean and Tonya's story. And then just also with your book, Yushima. As you were giving the story, I really felt like I was there in that space. The words, the descriptions that you utilized. And when I heard those things, I really just wanted to connect with you and to hold you and to comfort you and be there with you in that space. I was angered. I wanted to defend you. I wanted to do so many things. And it just gives really a nod to your creativity and your ability to pull the reader into that space of where you are right then. And as far as trauma bonding, yes, I have a family member at the time. I was very young. I wouldn't say maybe 6 or 7. And we had he was molesting and having incest with me for a number of years. And at the time that it started, it started with the fact that it was going to be a secret. And I really loved this particular family member, and we were really close. And I really didn't understand that it was wrong, because I felt like this is a person who loves me, who cares for me. He's a family member. Although the relationship looks different from other people within my family who are males, it must be okay, because if it wasn't, then he wouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? And because he told me it was a secret, it was our secret, I kept that secret. I had a friend who used to come over and visit, and one day he tried to touch her inappropriately, and she told her mom, which rightfully so, as she should have. And her mom came and talked to her, and rightfully so. And it became a whole big situation. And as I was talking to her, I was like, well, why did you tell? We were having conversations. She's like, well, you're supposed to tell. And I'm like, well, it's a secret. You're not supposed to. But as we were talking, she made me feel like I needed to tell. And I told. And then there was, this big uproar within my home, within my family. So many things that were going back and forth. And I felt like I had violated a trust. I felt really bad about the backlash that came and everything, and I didn't feel good about myself at that point. And I didn't like what was happening with him and the relationships and how things were breaking down. And I really felt guilty, and I did feel, I could say, ashamed. Um, and we bonded even more on that because I felt like if I had not have said anything, then none of these things would have happened. It's because I said
Mhm.
something and I should not have said.
Mhm.
And it's just it's easy to do. If you're with a person and you're in a space, and sometimes when people when you have certain levels of trust, they can just violate those things and they can attach you to that person in an unhealthy way.
Absolutely. Sorry to hear about your story, but I'm grateful for your journey of healing. That had to be such a confusing time for you, to have your trust violated by somebody who you hold in such high regard, especially if it's a family member that you love and you trust them with your life, and whatever they tell you to do, it must be for your good, right? Because you love me. And so as we get older, when we still have that little girl inside of us that's still hurting and still yearning and longing for acceptance and love, we find ourselves in that same cycle of abuse, wanting to please our abusers, right? Wanting to please our
Hmm.
Yes.
enemies pretty much, because I feel like if you hurting me, you're really my enemy. And it's something that we really need to break. It's a stronghold that we need to break, and it's a trauma that we need to heal from. And I'm so glad that you've already started that process, you and Sean and Tonya, who is no longer with us right now. But thank you for sharing that story. You tell your story so eloquently as well. I cannot wait to read your book. I'm so like hyped for it, CC's Ink. I'm so like ready for it because your story will touch your readers as well. So thank you for that. All right, so moving on, we're about to close. I have one more excerpt that I wanted to talk about. In chapter 4, we also discussed how painful it was for me to find out that my ex had been lying and cheating during our marriage. And I received support from married couples. But I remember when I was single and I would go through a breakup or have relationship issues, I didn't get that same level of support from my married friends. The chapter in my book, Pain is Pain, talks about that. Um, so I encourage us to remember that our single friends need us to be there as well, and to not dismiss their feelings just because they're not married, if they're going through a breakup or if they have something going on in their relationship. When was the last time someone dismissed your feelings? Sean, you want to start since Chanelle just told us?
Um, sure. And I'm gonna say this. It doesn't even have to be your friend. It could be the person that you were in the relationship with. You
Mm,
know how you're feeling a certain kind of way, or you're not feeling loved, or felt being a priority in their life, and they just try to make you feel like that's not important, or something else that they're doing is more important than
mm,
you are, um, at the time. And I honestly feel like, I mean, what I have experienced is that I I have to really point the finger back at myself too, because I have done that too, so I'm not exempt. So I felt like it was karma,
mm,
that I'm what I did to someone else is coming back on me, because
mm,
I haven't been perfect in the relationships. Other dudes or whatever have tried to talk to me or wanted to talk to me, and I kind of dismissed them. I kind of dismissed the feelings that they had for me. I had a friend and we was just friends, but he wanted a relationship, and I didn't feel the way that he felt for me. So he told me that he couldn't be my friend. And I was like, how could you not be my friend? Like, dude, just friendship. And he was like, because I like you too much to be your friend. And I'm like, I didn't get it until I got it. You know what I
mm,
mean?
mm,
Um, So I started being conscious of how I treat people because, like we said um, in another one of the sessions, and I think it was you, Chanel, or Chanel, or Nubian, that we treat people how we want to be treated. So I started treating people how I want to be treated. And if that's not reciprocated, then I can walk away,
Right.
because I know I have done 110 and went beyond and above, because that's what I do as in any relationship, be it a friendship, a workship, a situationship, whatever.
Mhm.
So
Entanglement, whatever.
that's how.
Okay.
So, so all of that. So I treat people how I want to be treated. And then you also have to teach people how to treat you. You
Mhm.
know, a lot of people just come in from their past relationships and just want to treat you like any old regular Joe Small. But, no, you're going to treat me how I want you to treat me. So I'm going to teach you how to treat me. And
Exactly.
if you saying that you're going to call me at 9, or you're going to be here at 9, and you show up at 9:05 and you don't call me and tell me that you're going to be late, then
Mhm.
there are consequences for
Right.
that. Either a talk, or I'm not coming,
Right.
or there are consequences, because I think a lot of time we hold ourselves more accountable for holding other people accountable for how they treat us. And it
Yes.
goes both ways. It goes both ways. So I mean, and especially, like I said, now, since I treat people how I want to be treated, and if
Mhm.
that's not reciprocated, I'm out the door. No,
Absolutely.
I gave you a shot. I gave you a chance. It's this one guy who wanted to talk to me, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna come see you at 7." I don't hear from him. I
Mhm.
blocked him. I'm like,
That's
when I tell you I'm going to do something for you or with you, I'm there. If I can't make it at that time, hey, I'm running 10 minutes behind. I'll
right.
text, hey, whatever. It takes nothing.
Right.
Nothing. And the person looks at you in a different aspect, like, okay, yeah, at least she told me. I'm not sitting here waiting, twiddling my
Mhm.
thumbs for
Mhm.
you, because now you're not respecting me. That's
That's
how
right.
I'm looking at it. You're
Mhm.
not respecting me. You're not respecting my
My
time that
time.
I can't get back.
Right.
So yeah. So
I
yeah,
love that.
I cut him off.
Mhm.
Sean, that was everything. I mean, she just hit so many
Everything.
points, so many different levels, and I wasn't even thinking about self accountability. I'm like, she just really blew that one out the
She
water. I'm
just brought
telling you.
that. I'm finna take. I'm like, yeah,
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 yeah. I'm
absolutely.
like,
Because
like,
we
yes,
do. We
yes to
hold
everything she
ourselves
said.
to a higher standard than we hold others to treat. Absolutely, like that is mind blown. That is absolutely point. And I do believe that we treat people the way we want to be treated, even in the way of people pleasing. I do things for other people. And I was thinking about you
True.
yesterday, Chanel, because that's why I always ask you, please tell me how I can support you. Because Chanel does so much for so many other people with blasting and, putting your stuff on Facebook and stuff. And you too, Sean, you do, I don't know when you learned that lesson, but when we were living together, you absolutely treated me wonderfully. So I don't know when you learned that lesson. It must have been early in life, okay? But we do when I find myself, if I'm in pain, right, and I need my back rubbed, I ask my husband, are you in pain? Does your back hurt? Do you want me to give you a massage? Instead of just asking, hey, my back is really hurting, because I feel like I need to earn that. It's almost like, let me make sure I do
Mercy.
something to earn this act of kindness before I ask him to do
Wow.
it. When my whole life is only trying to make him comfortable, my kids comfortable, and make sure everybody has what they need, right? I find myself doing that in every aspect in my life. People bought me gifts for my birthday. all I could keep thinking about is, what can I get them? It's my birthday. I knew my husband had bought me some stuff for my birthday. I bought him that $70 shaving thing. So when I got my gift, I would feel like I earned it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it can be unhealthy. So it's about finding that balance in life, because I always want people to know that I appreciate them, and I don't want anybody to feel like I'm taking advantage of them, because I've been taken advantage of so much in my lifetime. And I would never want anyone to associate me accepting a gift or a kindness without reciprocating right away, right? Without some kind of, without reciprocation immediately. I don't want you to feel like, oh, look, I did this for her, and now look, I ain't getting nothing in return. And that's something that's been embedded for me. And that comes with abuse and neglect, and just wanting to earn someone's love and earn someone's approval, right? Even as a child, it comes from being the hero in your relationships. Even as a child, I want to keep the peace in my household. If I could keep everybody happy, if I could be funny enough, right? If I could clean up and keep it clean enough, if I could be quiet enough when it's time for me to just disappear, if I can just disappear and blend into the background, everybody around me would be happy. And so we take some of those lessons into our adulthood, and they are absolutely right there in the surface and in the forefront, and we don't even know why. We don't even recognize it. We don't even know. And so that's such a huge point that you brought up, Sean. That was great. And Chanelle, you as well. Thank you so much for sharing today. Chapter 4 was everything, but show us chapter 3, 2, and 1. We just go keep on going. You hear me? Listen, we are on this, okay? So I want you to give yourselves a hand, and I just thank you all for participating in this discussion today, and I thank you all for watching. Remember to check out my store, yearofyushima.net. There you will find the book collection. Since we discussed chapter 4 today, check out my site and you'll see that chapter 4 has been released, it has been launched, and it is ready for you to check it out and purchase something. Remember to support our panelists today. We have CC's Inc. Follow her on Facebook. The link will be down below. We have Shunketta Burton, who joined us today and gave us her expertise as well. And I just thank both of the ladies. Remember, have a great day. And until next time, be bold, make a statement, and be empowered. Thank you.